Welcome to the Good Push Toolkit on community engagement. Just to give you an overview on what this kind of video is going to go through. First, we will go into a definition of community engagement, and then look at why it's important to do, who is your community, specific methods of doing community engagement. We'll look a little bit at needs assessments and what those are. Then talk about partnerships. And then you'll hear from Tin, who works with Skateistan in Cambodia, and her experience doing community engagement over there. And then we have an activity which you can do together with your team or on your own if you feel like it. So, before we talk about community engagement, what does that mean? So, I guess a more kind of theoretical definition is the process of building relationships and collaborating with different community groups to address issues that affect community well-being. And what this looks like in practice is the regular communication and interaction that you have with community members so that you're able to build the reach and quality and reputation of your skate project. Just to kind of bring this topic back to your own project, think for a second about a success story that you've had in terms of working with the community. I'm pretty sure that everyone that's watching this can think of something if you've already started your activities. So just think for a second. Now, before going into the other topics, it's really important to be clear, I guess, on what we are meaning by community. And though it's different for every project, a lot of skate projects are going to have kind of, I guess, three main groups that you're working with regularly. So that would be the participants and their families. So a lot of projects are working with kids or youth, and so the families are often, really important in having the kids coming and keeping their involvement and having the community on board. Then local officials and leaders can be super important when you want to, well, for example, build a facility, build a skate park. You definitely need to be coordinating with officials. But even for smaller things, if you want to be organizing events, maybe you need to be in touch with different community leaders. Then, another main group is current or potential partners. So partners cover a lot of things. We're going to talk about that more in a few minutes, but it can be program partners, so people that you're kind of doing joint activities with, but it can also be supporters, sponsors. Can cover kind of a range of different people or organizations. So, before we talk about the larger community, it can be really useful to be clear on who your actual participants are. So, the people that are coming to whatever activities you're running. For a lot of projects, these are kids or youth that are coming. But that's the kind of thing to think about. So, what is the age range? Is there any kind of a focus that you want? More and more, we're seeing projects that are making a point of trying to include girls, if not an equal amount, at least like a certain, maybe at least 25% girls or something like that. Then obviously, where are these participants coming from? Where do they live? Are they from the area where your skate park is based? Are they from, all over the city? Are you targeting, for example, kids that are out of school? Or are you maybe working together with schools and doing programs? And depending where you're working, there may also be particular kind of social issues that you are hoping to address through your project. So maybe there's a lot of refugees and you want to help, involve them more in society and kind of get them into the skate park and making friends with other people. So, why do community engagement? There's a few key reasons, I think. So, quality is a big one. If you are kind of regularly communicating with people and including their input and finding out, what would actually be useful for them and what they value, then you're engaging in a participatory process. And this is going to help ensure that the activities that you're doing, the programs, are going to be relevant for the community that you're working with. Then this also is, quite tied up with getting the reach that you want. So if you're not talking to people, then you're not going to know if the way that you have things set up actually makes sense. So, can the people that you want to come, so say you want, I don't know, young kids to be coming from the neighborhood, are things set up in a way that is accessible for them? Can they get there on their own? Are they interested in skateboarding? Are there any barriers to them attending? For example, maybe you have it set up at a time when actually the kids are still in school or there's something else going on, and then it's not going to work, obviously. And a third main reason for doing community engagement is reputation. So, yeah, basically getting out there and building relationships and trust with the people in the community so that, they're going to be supportive of the work that you're doing. And I think this is something that is especially helpful if you're doing a skate project in a community where skateboarding is relatively new, because people might not know what to think about it, and you're really kind of setting the scene and kind of, yeah, establishing not just your own project but skateboarding as a positive activity. So there's a lot of different methods of engaging the community. There's a couple examples listed here. Yeah, kind of very basic ones, like flyers or meetings or giving tours of your activities. And I mean, some of these things here seem pretty old school, but face-to-face communication can be really effective. That said, you can also do a lot and reach a lot of people through social media. You can also do like live streams, things like that. And yeah, events are a really good one. So doing skate demos, art shows, also taking part in existing events that are happening. So needs assessments. It sounds like kind of a technical term, but it's just basically a bit more of a structured way of getting the facts that you need to do better work. So, a needs assessment can help you to determine which communities that you should be working in and with. It helps to kind of see what else is going on out there so you're not doubling up on the efforts of other NGOs or schools. Needs assessments can help you to shape the programs that you're offering. So, thinking about does the skate park or the activities, do they need to be walking distance from the people that you're working with? Do you need to provide transport? What other kind of recreation or sport activities are there in the area? Are kids interested in skateboarding? It can also help you to identify potential partners and stakeholders, and also any potential risks or security issues. I mean, another reason why they can be useful is that perhaps a donor or a supporter that you're working with is asking you, what kind of research have you done? What kind of scoping have you done before setting up this project? But I think it's most useful to do it for your own use. Then when to do a needs assessment? Well, ideally you would do something like this. So kind of asking these questions before you start a new project or a new location, or even before you start a new activity. But if you have already got a project going, it's also possible to just do a needs assessment partway through to check out, how your program is performing, what's working out, is there, things that you could improve. And this can take place in different ways. You can hold like a community meeting where you invite different people. You can just have a questionnaire that you kind of get people to fill out, or perhaps your team goes around and kind of does a sort of a survey with some of the parents or partners, or just people in the neighborhood. So there's lots of different ways to do it. And in Skatestan's experience, in the early days, we kind of did this sort of stuff informally. So in Afghanistan and Cambodia, we didn't, have a very structured needs assessment system, but our teams were going out and talking to a lot of people, doing meetings, doing actual skateboarding outreach just in different places and seeing what the reaction was from the kids. So we had a very kind of informal approach at first, and then over time that became more formal. Like when we were setting up in South Africa, we did a more formal scouting where we had specific questions that we were seeking answers to. So far we've seen partnerships come up a little bit already in this presentation. And partnerships means basically working together with another organization towards a shared goal. And these can be, I think, very useful and can really kind of improve the quality of what you're doing and can also really improve your reach. So there's lots of different types of partnerships that are possible. So to give some examples, at Skateistan we have partnerships with other NGOs where there's some that are working specifically with children with disabilities, or also partnerships with various schools for the deaf, where their students are then coming and attending Skateistan programs, and we then, kind of split the responsibilities in terms of like transport costs and teaching and different things like that. Then we also do the same thing with schools. Other partnerships that are possible are, getting sponsorships from businesses or from government. Um, we also have some partnerships with various ministries. So the Ministry of Education in Afghanistan, for example, supports our back to school program. So there's a lot of different partnerships that are possible. And I mean, a big tip is just to always choose partners that have a mission and goals that are aligned with your own. That's kind of the big one. But otherwise, yeah, there can be a lot of benefits of having partnerships. So they can help you to address any gaps you have, whether that's activities that you want to be providing. Um, they can also help to strengthen community relationships. If you're starting a project brand new in a place, that can really help you to get the community on board if you partner up with an organization that's already respected. It can help you expand the services that you offer. So maybe they're an arts NGO and you want to do skateboarding stuff. So you partner together and provide both those things to your students. And you can also maybe get some income through partnerships. So obviously through donors and sponsors, you can get income, but also sometimes other NGOs or schools are willing to provide an honorarium, which is a small amount, maybe $100 a month or $200 a month, where because you're helping them to fill like a kind of sports or recreation slot that they want to have for their participants, their students. As with anything, partnerships also have risks. There can be, I don't know, negative consequences for your work. For example, if you're working with a partner that doesn't have a great reputation, either in the community or, for example, some kind of a company that works internationally that has a bad reputation, it's worth thinking about these kinds of things before partnering. Sometimes partners are just not on the same wavelength. You don't have the same goals, or the capacities are very different, and you find that you're just wasting a lot of time trying to keep that partnership going that you could be putting into other things. When you're a small organization, you also want to be careful that you're not getting into a situation where another partner is sort of using you or maybe taking credit for your work. This can be very frustrating when you're small and trying to get your work out there and recognized in the community. And I mean, there's bigger risks that perhaps you have a kind of rules about protecting the children that you're working with, and the partners aren't listening and they are breaking them. Maybe an extreme example would be if you have a rule, a very good rule, that there is no hitting of kids in your programs, and maybe you have a partner that breaks that rule, and that would be very bad. So, as you see on the slide here, there's a kind of a sample from a Skateistan partnership policy. So this is actually available in the resources section on this toolkit. You'll see it, and you can kind of check it out. And if you don't yet have a partnership policy, you might want to think about creating one. So now we're going to listen to Tin, who's been working with Skateistan Cambodia for several years, and we'll tell you about how they've been doing community engagement in Cambodia.
Hello, my name is Tin. I am the program officer at Skateistan Cambodia. I have been working with Skateistan about 6 years. I will tell the very beginning how can we start our first facilitate. So to start with, a history of Benjamin, the founder of Skateistan Cambodia. So Benji used to work in PSA NGO and he received a skateboard as a gift from abroad. And in that time, he was rolling skateboard around and kids saw it. And they were so impressed to this sport that they never seen that before. And Benji thought, oh, he has to do something with that. So he was trying contact to Kyrgyzstan about project in Cambodia. And he made it. So Benji had a good connection with PSO and his wife had a good connection with friend NGO that we call Matsamlang. So Benji reached out to them to sign MOU as partners. So after discussion, then we built a small skate park at PSO. And it was a smart way to do that because we could gain more experiences by learning from partners. We could get more kids involved through partners. And also we could bring community students that lives around the office to skate with PSO kids. After that, Benji reached out to partner friend NGO that found out they do a lot of outreach in Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh is the capital city in Cambodia, but it was a big challenge because skateboarding was so new and parents not allow their kids to involve with our program. So we were trying to explain them, hey, please give your kid a try to join skate season with us and your kids will be safe. And because we have safety gear educators who always help them to feel safe. After 1 hour, they didn't want to leave because they had so much fun. And Kyrgyzstan started to grow and have a lot of NGO reach out to us. But the challenge, we didn't have our own facility yet. In 2012, we moved to new location. We have our own facility and we increased our capacity. We had our own students. People start to reach out to us more and more. And that including partner working with disabled students. So we have a proper lesson plan. We always celebrate even in our space like Human Rights, Women Day, Go Skateboarding Day, etc. But it was a big challenge again because from year by year, community has developed very fast. So our students and families who have lived around moved out. So the beginning of January 2018, we decided to move to new location. We found a good place in the poorest communities around it, low income level. But how can we get people to know us in new location? To start with, we went to community to say hi and gave flyer to let them know that we just moved our entire office. We did for a small community event in the new space, reach out to 100 children and parents to introduce ourselves to community that includes some game and activity. And after grand opening was started, the amount of the students was surprised us. They came more than we expected. But after grand opening, the attendance get low. We don't know why. So we found out that was so hard for us to make them understand about the structure and long-term impact for their kids' life in the future. So a solution to the big challenge of having a small number of students, so we set up a community engagement planning meeting. We went to community again to say hi and introduce the program again too. For an example, introduce the library space, homework help, and encourage them to get their kids more education, and build more confidence through skateboarding. We were trying to build more relationship between Kyrgyzstan and community. After spend a few months that we opened our space up, the kids had so much fun. They started understand all the program, and the parents brought their kids to our space to do the registration, and we have a good amount of the students that we expect. I think we are good now.
So now you've heard quite a bit about community engagement. What are some next steps you can take? I don't know where you're at with your project, so here's some kind of general advice. Maybe I think this is useful for anyone, no matter what stage you're at with your project. Start small. So, what is one community group that you have that you think is maybe most important at this time to build your relationship with? So it could be anybody. Maybe you're like, oh, we've really been neglecting communicating with the parents, or how we should be reaching out to local businesses more. Think about it. Maybe put your heads together if you have a team, and just start. Just start to reach out to them. Then a second suggestion for maybe what to do next. If you already have a project that's up and running, an activity that can be really helpful is something that is called a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you are interested in doing something like this, in the next slide, just hang in here. I will kind of go through how you do such a thing. It sounds maybe a bit like, oh, what is that? But it's not very difficult. And it can be, yeah, just super helpful. It'll help you to identify what you're doing well and what you can improve in terms of your community engagement. So, SWOT analysis. As I said, this is something probably most useful to be doing once you already have activities running. But it can be something that if you're in your kind of startup, reach out phase, it can be a useful activity to do as well. So if you have a team, if you got other people that you're working with, I highly suggest doing this together with them. If you're in the same place, you can do it together even on pen and paper, old-fashioned way, sticky notes. Otherwise, you can just start a Google Doc and put your ideas there. But think about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats of how your project is currently working with the wider community. And just a bit of guidance. Strengths and weaknesses are usually things that are kind of internal to your project, your organization. It's things that you have control over. Whereas opportunities and threats are usually like external things that are coming up that you don't have so much control over, but you can kind of anticipate and prepare for and take action on. So, go through each of these, I guess, one by one and try to come up with, I'd say try to come up with a few bullet points for each one. If you can, there's a tendency I find for people to kind of put a lot of strengths there and not so many weaknesses, or maybe lots of opportunities, but not be able to think about so many threats. So try to make it a little bit equal in terms of those if you can. Yeah, and just a note here. So, like I said, if you are in the same place as your other team members, it can be quite, I find it like kind of effective if you actually do it with like sticky notes and markers and stuff, because you kind of, it's a very visual exercise then. You can make a sort of poster with this, in this design of the graphic here, the SWOT on the left. Yeah, you can make a kind of poster like that, and then you can actually move around the things as you kind of talk about them. So maybe someone brings up something that they say is a strength, and someone else would say, but that's, that's also can be a weakness of ours. So, for example, people can say, it's a strength that we are volunteer run. That's really great because it's cost effective and people are passionate. But then someone else will say, but it's also a weakness because then people only have limited amounts of time to put into engaging with the community. So yeah, it's good to be like talking about these things. And once you have everybody's ideas into this little matrix or table or whatever it is, another thing that can be useful to do is to look at especially the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, and to maybe talk amongst yourselves and highlight like a couple points from here that you really want to like work on. So then from that, if you do that, you have a few like kind of action points that you can work on. Like, what are some opportunities we need to take advantage of right now? What are some of the biggest threats that we can kind of prepare ourselves for a bit more? And can we turn some of those weaknesses into strengths? So good luck with that. And the easiest way to do this is to just start and give it a go. Thank you for watching the community engagement presentation. I encourage you to check out the other ones and also look at the toolkit where there's some more information about this topic and a whole bunch of resources and templates and things that you can use within your own project.